Good morning to everyone. So I'm here to tell you about school lunches. More specifically, about school lunches in Chile. So at this point, you may be thinking, this is an absent-minded professor that walked into the wrong summit. But in fact, there's a very close connection between school lunches in Chile and my new role as chief economist at AppNexus. So I want to tell you the story. So I grew up in Chile. I graduated from university there in the late 90s, which was a really exciting time for our country. So Chile was a nascent democracy after a long dictatorship, and the newly elected democratic governments were spending a lot of public money in social programs to support the underprivileged classes. Now, at the same time, this was happening in the context of a very vibrant free market economy that Chile had embraced, and as a result, most of these social programs were provided by private firms. So let me tell you about one of the largest such social programs, one that I was involved in and is very close to my heart. This was the school meals program in which the government feeds 2 million kids daily with breakfast and lunch in all public schools. Now, this was a challenging project. On one side, you have thousands of schools. On the other side, you have tens of providers that have different price points when serving different schools. And as a result, deciding which firms, which providers should serve what school was a very complex problem. At the time, the plan that the government was using to solve this allocation problem wasn't really working. And in fact, it was a bit of a mess. The composition and the quality of the menus weren't provided by different firms, weren't standardized, so it was very hard for the government to objectively compare different offerings. And as a result, firms did not have strong incentives to engage in price competition. Now, in my first job after I graduated from university, I was part of a team of 3 that was asked to come up with a new plan. And our answer was the introduction of a transparent, competitive bid auction. More specifically, we standardized the composition and the quality of the menus, and then we made firms compete on prices via the auction mechanism. Further, the auction logic was clever in allowing firms to capitalize on economies of scale when serving multiple schools. Our new auction process had a dramatic effect. It saved 20 to 25% of the procurement cost, allowing the government to feed 300,000 more kids daily with the same budget. Believe it or not, eventually, the providers also became more profitable. So overall, we created a transparent and competitive marketplace that, together with the use of economic science to set the auction rules, the auction logic, had a huge impact in an area of tremendous social value. So how is this related to AdTech? So ever since that day, I've been interested in improving how vibrant marketplaces function and drawing parallels to other industries. And in this process, while being a professor at Columbia Business School, this is 10 years later after my Chilean experience, I became fascinated by auction markets for advertising. So I was fascinated by their speed, scale, technology. Also, these markets, as you know, have been around for several years now, and many of the practices related to the marketplace design are somewhat accepted today. However, I think there is a sense that several of these practices grew out of necessity, but they may not be the right solution. These markets are still shaping, and this provides numerous opportunities to work in interesting and important problems. And finally, as you also know, digital advertising is key for content provision in the internet, so it is also an area of social importance. In my role as chief economist at AppNexus, I plan, similarly to my Chilean work, to use cutting-edge economic science to come up with the best possible selling mechanisms to improve publishers' monetization strategies. So let me describe briefly a few of the questions we're trying to address. First, are there selling mechanisms that simultaneously achieve two objectives? They are transparent for buyers, and they also achieve high revenues for sellers. Or in other words, can we capture buyers' willingness to pay in a fair way? Second, what is a sensible auction logic for header bid auctions? Should it be similar to standard RTB auctions, or perhaps should it be different? And third, what are the overarching market dynamics that emerge when different selling mechanisms, such as RTB auctions, deals, private deals, interact with one another, and how should we design these mechanisms to avoid cannibalization among them? So my colleagues at AppNexus and I are very excited to work with you addressing this and other issues in order to help you better monetize your content, services, applications, so that we can all together create a better internet. And you know, people say there's no such thing as a free lunch. But I believe that in this industry, we can make improvements that would benefit all. Thank you very much.